Hey, what's up, Blue Collar Millionaires? Welcome back. I have an old friend of mine today, John Yablonski. We were playing basketball all the time 30 years ago. He's going to talk about his how basketball ties into business, the level he played at, and what he's doing today. And we're just going to kind of go over a lot of stuff today about winning with winners and how what you do when you're young, what you do and everything ties into how you're successful in business and everything. John, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Kev. Thanks, Chris, for having me. Excited to be on today. As Kevin said, I've known Kevin for many, many years. I think it was 1992 is probably, or 1992, 1993 is where we first met. So like Kev said, 30 years. And I've been following Chris and Kevin on Blue Collar Millionaire. Obviously, they provide a ton of content. So I'm excited to be here today.
Good to have you.
I'll tell you how John and I met and then re-met, because I think it's kind of interesting. So we used to play, I played basketball every day. We had a friend in common who was going to college with him. And this guy told me, I thought I was good. And he said,
he was.
I'm going to bring this guy up on the weekend. He's nice, man. He's better than you. And I didn't like that. And we played and John was better than me. And I remember I was like, man, this guy can play. So, but this is what was funny. They were going to Seton Hall University in the Big East. Seton Hall went to the NCAA finals in 1989. And I was a huge Seton Hall fan growing up. My father, we went to all the games. So then I hear that John is going to be trying to be a walk-on on the team. Fast forward a couple years, John ended up making the team, being a scholarship. I was watching him on ESPN play, shoot threes, make threes. But one thing that stuck out, John, I never told you was there was like a year and a half where I didn't get to play against you much because you were always playing with the players.
Right.
And then John got us into play with the players at Walsh Gymnasium. And I was playing against you, and you had gotten like 10 times better than you were before. So there was this gap between us before, and all of a sudden it was massive. And I remember how that stuck in my mind, that you were playing against like great players. So you had no choice but to adapt. And I was playing against the same guys, beating them up at the Y, and I didn't get any better. And that's that's business, right? That's why we go into masterminds.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that is you don't know what's happening when it's happening, and then maybe later on you take a step back. So actually, to go back further, as a high schooler, I didn't even start, Chris, as on my varsity team for high school. And then again, Kevin said, but I love the game and I would just play. And then Kevin, I met Kevin, I was given the opportunity to play, and I made the team just because I had that grinder mentality. It's something that I wanted really bad. And again, it's doing things when people aren't looking, right? So whether it's basketball or business, do you shut it down at 5 o'clock and not get any better till the next day at 9? Or are you educating yourself? Are you talking to people? Are you, grabbing a cup of coffee with someone to continue to elevate yourself? There's so many ties in the basketball, and Kobe Bryant would say a guy could work out 1 time a day and get better. I'm working out 4 times a day. So I'm multiplying that X, how much a week, a month, a year that I'm getting better than him. So Kevin is right. Like when I went and started playing there, I knew that level was really, really high and better than where I was. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this, but I kept grinding it out. And obviously playing with those guys every day got me to a point where either sink or swim type of thing. Like I got to figure this out, and I got better every day. And just a quick story, Adrian Griffin, who is now one of the assistants for the Toronto Raptors. He played with me at Seton Hall. He had told me one time I was the one player of all the guys we played with that got better every year. But I had such a long way to go to get to where those guys were. So my progress had to keep getting better, where the guys who were good, maybe like Kevin said, if you're always with those guys, maybe you don't have as much growth as maybe someone coming from the bottom. So in business, that's where I kind of am. I'm kind of maybe just starting a little bit. I have some big aspirations, but that's why I'm trying to talk to people like you guys and and learn and always, always educate myself.
I think that was an important thing to point out, on the fact that you didn't just show up with all of this talent in the basketball scene. You had to put the work in junior high, and look at where that work took you. And because so many people will discount themselves very quickly to say, well, I've never had my own business. I didn't have a family that had their own business. I've never been around entrepreneurs. I've always worked a job as a W-2 employee, and they discount themselves. But the reality is anybody can be anything if they're willing to put the work in. And I truly believe that. I believe anybody could be a rocket scientist. It's just going to take some people more work than others. But the work still has to be put in. Very few people walk in with just raw talent and are able to be superstars with just the raw talent.
Yeah, and it's funny because, again, the basketball and coaching and a team all ties into the business aspect, because if you listen to what everybody or the generalized public says, they would have told me, you have no chance to play basketball in college. You didn't even start on your high school team. Yeah. And then I could have easily said, yeah, you're right. Whatever. I'm 5'10". This is what it is. I'll just, play, intramural sports or something. It's the same thing in business as I learn and grow. Yep. When you see people or hear people making great livings or going on vacation anytime they want or making millions of dollars, most people think, well, I can't do that. Those are just those people, and I can't do that. So, the world is telling you, work hard, get a good job, make a little bit of money, put away for retirement. Hopefully by 65, you're good and you can maybe have a nice retirement, but there's more to that if you want it. And obviously you guys are proving that.
So tell me where you're at with business at this point. Like, did you come from the W-2 world? Give us that little journey, what got you started as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, it's funny because I was a W-2 guy. I was a college basketball coach for a while. Then I was in sales after that and did okay. I was doing fine, but someone was telling me how much I could make, and putting a lot of limitations on me. And I was listening to, work hard, do all that stuff. They'll take your weekends, go relax, work will be there on Monday. And I just always felt there was more, just like basketball. I didn't know what that was. And you could always say hindsight and go back, but I'm like, well, I have opportunities to change this. So I started to get sick of my situation of doing that. And I actually was let go from a job that I had for 10 years. And in the time, I thought it was the worst thing. And now that I look back, it was the best thing. So I took a job right after that just to have a paycheck to support my family. And I absolutely hated it. So I basically came back and spoke to my wife and I said, I can't do this. I want to do real estate. I know people who do this. And I basically quit my job flat out with a little bit of money in the bank. And I had 2 boys living here in New Jersey. And I said, I'd rather count on myself than count on someone else, because I've done this already with basketball, knowing that I can get it done. So my wife was very supportive. And I basically started my real estate business from zero with, not hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank either. I was still the W-2 guy prior to that. So I put all the onus on myself to start my own business and grow it.
So let me ask you this, because this is probably a lot of people are deciding, do I just quit my business and start something else? Do I moonlight it and, put in those 80-hour weeks? And I'm not asking for a figure here, a number, but how many months could you say you were able to support yourself based off of what was in the bank when you quit your job?
I would say, and it was funny because we moved real prior to that to a place we wanted to be. And it was it was a stretch for us. And I was like, so there was added pressure there. But I would say I probably had 9 to 12 months, depending on how lean you wanted to be. I mean, my wife was working. I did have some support of my family, like my parents, which were good, who, wouldn't probably ever let me go without making the mortgage payment if I needed to, as long as I was doing what I was supposed to. But, you know, it's a lot of pressure, but
Absolutely.
you know, pressure makes diamonds also. So, you know, there was some stressful times for me personally. Like, you know, sometimes you have some alone time in your head and you're like, yo, what am I doing here? I got 2 kids and it's easy, like, you know, it's easy, like Kevin said, for maybe his other buddy after 90 days to be like, the pressure, you know, does play on your mind. Like the mind's a powerful thing in a good and bad way. And it's easy to say, I'm going to just bag this. I can't do it. So I would say for someone who maybe has a spouse that's working, and you can maybe start to moonlight and do some things and then feel like you're comfortable enough to transition. I was so sick of what I was doing and hated it so much. I don't think I could have moonlighted to do it. It was causing me angst in my life just by working that job. It was, you know, I'd rather just go all in and be focused and positive on the one thing I was trying to get to.
I think that's a great question, because people, when I talk to people, I mean, there's definitely people who can just cold turkey quit a job and go into it.
Right.
But I like to get momentum. And the reason I like that is because if I was working a job, I'd want to be doing it at night, like get some momentum. It's not that you're making money on the side. You're like, you're convincing yourself that you can do it. Rather, you know, you get that momentum. So I don't know. In 2007, I lost a lot of money. I actually worked a job in insurance. A lot of people don't. That was the first job I ever had. And I was doing it at night, rebuilding the gutter business. And I had it up to making about $60,000 a year before I left the thing. I think it's tough to just go in and quit your job. So when I see people do that, I always tell them, hey, if you're not willing to do it for 2 hours focused every night, you're probably not going to, you're not going to do it anyway.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I was just under a unique situation where I felt like it was so bad with what I was doing that, you know, I don't know. It just, I 100% agree with you, Kevin. It's always that fine line of what you feel like you can get done. If I felt like I was if I was in my previous job that I was working for 10 years, I probably would have done it that way. But it just got to be a point of so much stress and angst for me that I was like, I don't need this while I was trying to get to somewhere else. I just couldn't take it. And everybody's situation is different, obviously.
I think this is a great time to insert the reason why we preach purchase an existing business with a track record, because I mean, we're talking about the concept of a startup at the moment. Leave your job to start up a business, which takes a ton of effing work. But if you can sit there and already purchase in the cash flow, you don't have that burden and stress and anxiety of your money not being there and trying to generate it. So you can literally spend some time every evening, every morning looking up and making phone calls. And you don't have to do 80 hours when you're just doing phone calls, because people are not going to answer the phone at 1 a.m. in the morning about selling their business to you. But they will at 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the afternoon, and it'll give you a chance to do some research. So that's one way to fast track that getting out of a W-2 into entrepreneurship, owning a business, because the instant cash flow that you're buying the cash flow. You're not buying the concept.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is, and I'm sure Kevin has shared this many times, but Kevin and I had sat down for a full day one day when he came into New Jersey, and I don't know, we probably spent 6 or 8 hours. I think the people at Starbucks, I know they don't mind people hanging out, but I think we overstayed our welcome that day. But, you know, Kevin told me when he was trying to fast track what he was doing, he would stay up, you know, till X hours in the morning, you know, and doing it. And it was the same thing that of the Kobe Bryant example that I gave you. Kevin didn't want to spend an hour a day every day for that 7 hours. He was basically putting 5 to 7 hours in a night and trying to figure out, how do I get to where I need to get to faster? So my example, I spoke to you guys offline about when you're sick of your own stuff, how, you know, that's when change really happens. It's kind of the same thing. Like I always say, everything you do or everything you don't do is an excuse, right? You always choose to do something else other than what you may want to do. So like if you say, well, I can't do that, I need to sleep or I need to do this, like you do. But like Kevin was a perfect example. Like maybe Kevin only needs the 4 hours. So he was like, I'm getting to where I need to go quicker. So I think that's for everybody on their business. Like that's even for me in my education. At least I know when I choose to do something else, in the back of my mind, I say, yeah, you know what? I'm choosing to do this. And it's a conscious effort to get to where I need to be. Not like, oh, woe is me, I can't do it. Everybody good and bad has 24 hours in a day. The people who make good choices and the people who make bad choices. So it's like what you do with those 24 hours. Because Kevin, you, anybody who's a great entrepreneur probably didn't have things initially, but they figured out how to get there and get there quicker. So
100%.
I agree that when people ask me about that, and then I wanted to say this, it's not like I was digging holes at 1 a.m. I enjoyed what I was doing.
Yeah.
Right. I liked it. Like I didn't want to go to sleep. I mean, there was days, of course, I felt like this is enough, but I'll just keep going. And you have to do stuff you don't like. But for the most point, I saw this like vision out there and I was like, I can get this. I want to get there faster. And I need to get there faster. And then you just go that much. I'll just go that much harder. So it's the same thing. Like, yeah, if you're practicing basketball, Kobe Bryant, he just saw like, hey, I could be maybe the best player in the history of the world. And I need to get there faster. So that's, people are like, what are you doing at 1? I'm doing a lot of stuff that I like doing. I don't want to watch like 2 movies on a Friday night. I wanted to do that.
Right. Right. Yep.
It's what I was doing. John, tell us about when you had the stroke and then how that changed. That's like something we should all talk about, is life can change so quick. And this is a huge reason to have, not, of course you have to have all your ducks lined up with a will and stuff, but even the cash flowing thing, like you had a stroke. I mean, you're super healthy. John's like, of course he was a college basketball player, but he never got out of shape or anything. And then you had a stroke at what age? And what happened?
I had stroke at 43. I think, so this ties into me quitting my job. There was a lot of stress on some other things too with my family. So when I quit, obviously to get into real estate, and I got with a broker who wasn't the best choice for me, but I wasn't getting any business in the first 4 months. And I was actually coaching a basketball game, and 43 years old on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And I felt like like someone hit me in the back of the head with a baseball bat. So that was the onset of what was called a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is basically a brain bleed. And everybody couldn't believe it. Like Kevin said, like I try to stay in shape. I'm I don't know, whatever weight I was, I'm always working out, and they couldn't believe a 43-year-old in good shape could have this happen to them. And, that was kind of like a wake up call. That's where my entrepreneurial stuff really changed. Yeah, I quit my job to get into real estate, but the first book after that I had read was The Secret, about law of attraction. And that's basically, obviously, who you hang around with or your thought process is what brings, those vibrations into the universe that you live in. So, it was interesting, although the stroke happened and there was 4 months of, sitting on my couch, not doing anything, obviously no money coming in because I couldn't work real estate. Tough, thing in life, but it changed my mindset because I started reading, and I was like, I'm a real estate agent and I haven't made any money yet, but there's something more out there for me. And I just always feel that. I don't know. I can't put my finger always on it, but I'm like, there's more. And I'm like, I'm a people person. I like to be around people. So I just said, now I'm going, when I got healthy, I went full bore. Like I'm talking to people, I'm going out there, I'm meeting people. I want to learn. I want to educate. And I just started reading books, doing stuff, and basically fast tracked my real estate career. So I had the stroke, but although it was in the moment something bad, I do not have any physical, things that are happening to me currently. So I am 100% fine. You wouldn't know that I had a stroke, but it's always in the back of my head. My 5-year anniversary is at the end of this month. So we're about 2 weeks away of it being, really real, where I think about it all the time. So that drives me and motivates me. As Kevin said, I don't care how much money anybody has, how many doors they own, how many businesses they have. You know, tomorrow is not guaranteed to anybody. And that's why, that's why the entrepreneurship is so great. If you can create these businesses that basically you can enjoy your time, because that's the most important, whether it's your family, because tomorrow is not given. And if you spent the maximum amount of time with your family and doing the things that you wanted to do, instead of commuting to a job and not seeing your kids 8 hours a day and barely making it home to put them to bed, I mean, that's a game changer. And that was my thought process. Like, I want to enjoy the time with my family, whether I'm here another day or I'm here another, 50 years.
Wow. Chris, do you ever think about that? Because I think about it all the time now. Like, if something happens to me, what happens to my businesses?
Yeah.
And
so
is that flow going to come? And I don't mean, I mean, like, you're mentally, you can't handle it. You don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. So I'm 38. And when I was, I think 32, I'm like you guys, I'm healthy. I go to the gym 3 to 5 days a week. I've never carried excess weight on me, never had that issue. Metabolism's good. All of a sudden I was working really hard, some long days. This was, a few years ago, where I was still on the up and coming of trying to get my business at a level. And I was out in the field. And anyway, I just woke up one morning with some back pain and was down in my back. So I called my brother. He was working with me then. And I said, hey, you're going to have to go out alone. I'm down in my back. I'm going to rest it this morning and see if it'll get better. And it continually got worse. Long story short, I went into the hospital for 5 days. They put me on IVs and they said I was so dehydrated. I had some type of count, like a marathon runner at the end of a marathon run, whatever that count was that they were pulling. And I was drinking a gallon of water every single day, literally carrying a milk jug of water and drinking it, consuming it. So I was like, how am I dehydrated? But it woke me up and it made me realize it doesn't matter what's going on in your life. Anything could happen. So do I think about it often? No, I don't think about it often, but I get encountered with it probably once a month to every other month, where a conversation like this will happen. And it makes me think, is everything in order? Is my business running where my family's taken care of? Do I have enough life insurance to buffer the gap? Do I have everything in alignment? And that's, so many people don't. So many people sit there and they have just the paycheck to paycheck people. Like, what happens when they're gone? Their family suffers. They have to look to charities. They have to look to their church and their family, and hopefully their family has enough. And I think, if anything, that's why we all should fight for more, because you don't know when something could happen. And that's kind of a morbid thing to think about, but it's real life.
Yeah. Yep. It's not just in death, but just like if you can't handle the work. So we talk about doing it for a lifestyle, but if you're injured or sick, and your business can go away in like 30 days, you can lose the whole thing. And, we call it a dancing monkey, like a guy who has a business where if he steps away for a week, it's like a shit show.
Yeah.
And I was that guy. And
I was too.
John, you'll appreciate this for basketball, but I'm sure, Chris, you've sprained ankles. I used to sprain my ankles. You're playing basketball, you come down on someone's foot, you turn it, it blows up like a balloon. You have to hop to your car. It's like the worst thing. But what nobody knew was I had to go cut lawns the next day.
Right.
Like, there was no day off.
No.
Like, I would literally strap that with an ankle brace and then just like soldier that the next day. And I had to cut lawns all day. Like, it's like walking a marathon under uneven ground on the grass with a lawnmower.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even complain about it. I just do it.
Yep.
And I did it probably a dozen times in my 20s. Like, but it's the first day is the worst. It's miserable. You want to the second day is where it takes like a whole week to get over, but I would still go cut lawns. So I used to think about that. Like, this is ridiculous. When I started getting employees, I would take like at least a day off or 2 days and try to catch up. But you could see it. Like, if I had a stroke or something today, it's going to be really bad for the business, but my VAs are going to I want my business to go where if they didn't hear from me for a week, they would just keep going.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It would go like that. They just keep going.
And Chris, it's funny because when we sat down, Kevin and I, at that Starbucks, he would say, like, I put things on video and, and write down, this is exactly how to do it. So if Kevin went away and someone picked up the script or whatever, Kevin has his way of doing it in a touch, but like someone could figure it out because it's basically laid out probably 95% of how it should be done. So that's the stuff we talk about all the time, having processes in place, right? So if these things do happen.
It's so easy to do with Loom Video now. You just click and you're just screen sharing your entire screen. I just talk. Sometimes I answer emails. I used to do all these different things. I just had like a ton of videos. Then I actually had one of my VAs like organizing all the videos. I didn't even want to sit there and organize them. She would go through them, put them in the right place. It gives you like such confidence that if something happens, like, wow, there's a whole, playbook there.
Yeah.
And it's not just me.
I had, so my wife used to work at a financial firm, little boutique financial. It's a family office is what it was. And so one of their clients was a surgeon, and he had a stroke driving down the road, wrecked with him and his daughter, really hurt both of them because it was a bad wreck, but he never recovered from it. Literally motor skills, everything dropped out, had to go through rehab, and he couldn't pass to get back in. And so his income immediately stopped. Really good income. They were used to living off that income. And even when you think about it, you're like, okay, well, the doctor degree is going to get me where I want to be financially, but they're still a solopreneur, even if they have their own practice, because it's all based off of what their hands and their brain can calculate out of their hands. And I think I've even learned in business to look to try to get big enough so I can duplicate every position in my company. Because if that one person, that lead out in the field that's supposed to be on that job calls in, and I've got a packed schedule, how am I going to be able to service that customer without having to be able to say, hey, sorry, we've got a man out, we got to cancel and reschedule. So if I can duplicate those positions, then I'm less likely to be down. And that's just taking it a step further past ourselves. I don't like being dependent upon anything. And so the more scale you can get in your life, in your business, in any area, the better and less dependent you're going to be on one thing.
100%. And again, that goes for, like you said, for anything you do, but the more detailed processes you have in place, like it should be almost like Kevin and I talk basketball stuff all the time, but as he said, it's always related because it's team.
Absolutely.
It's, we have goals, we're trying to get something done. So it's like your playbook, right? So, you have that stuff in place. So whatever businesses Kevin has, someone could step in and they're not Kevin, but it wouldn't fall apart is what I'm saying. And I just,
exactly.
We speak all the time, and whether we make it like a basketball analogy or not, it always is very, very similar to those things. And one of the things I will say is, just like you have players who have a coach or something, I think the mentorship part of being an entrepreneur is a great thing. I'm sure you guys have people you talk to all the time. I'm on this giving Kevin all the praise today because he is a wise person that went through things and was in positions that maybe I am or was, and now he's somewhere where I aspire to be. I may not want to be the gutter king, but I'm gonna try to be something else, right? But Kevin, having a mentor, I think, and I post some things on social about doing this, even in the real estate world, whether you're an agent or whatever, it's always good because there's always things that someone will say that clicks something in your brain as like, I never thought about it that way, or that's a great idea, and you can run with it. And Kevin and I have these talks all the time. He's great, even shooting me some voice texts. He sent me one the other night, right? I was watching the NFL games and he sent me something and I'm listening to it. My wife is like, what are you doing? Why are you smiling? And I was like, Kevin sent me this voicemail. I don't know how long it was, but it was a few minutes because it wasn't like 10 seconds. And I'm like, I'm just jacked up. So sometimes you need that, and you need, someone to kind of give you a little help or something. And I was like, I was ready to stop watching the football game and go work on my business, because Kevin was jacking me up.
Well, I appreciate it. I'll tell you why. This is kind of what we were talking about. Like when I was at the last mastermind with the Dealmaker family, Mark Evans said something so basic. He said, win with winners. It's that simple. He was like, everybody's overthinking it. Just win with winners. You can't win with losers. That might sound harsh, but I told that to my mom, and she said, well, that's great because you've been trying to win with losers for most of your life. She didn't like a lot of people who were in my life 10 years ago. I had a lot of different employees that, I don't know, like sometimes I would help people who didn't really want to be helped, and you're offering them this stuff. And Tim Bratz had a good thing. Sometimes you offer something, you don't know if they take all that information you just give and just crumple it up and throw it in the garbage.
Yeah.
So like when you get somebody who like really wants it and who's running with it and you feel it energizes you, right, Chris? I mean, it feels great.
Absolutely.
It feels the total opposite when you try to help somebody and they don't want to do stuff. I did that so many times. So I made a decision like 3 or 4 years ago. I'm not really doing that anymore. And if I see a guy who has a track record, like John, he already was winning in all kinds of different things in life. And then he's talking to me about he wants to own apartment buildings. So I say, hey, get in Tim Bratz's thing. This guy owns 4,000.
Absolutely.
Like he can show you how to own hundreds of these. Like that probably helped, right, John? You get that borrowed belief. Yep. You have to be around people. But if you're watching football with your brother-in-law and the guy doesn't own anything, but he'll tell you why apartment buildings are risky. He'll tell you for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Like you don't know anything. But I used to have people like that in my head too. If you have all that negative people told me, oh, you can't make a living doing gutters and all this other nonsense. I didn't listen to it, but you have to have people around you who have done the thing you want to do. And if you just insulate yourself with that, it's just inevitable that you're going to start doing those things.
Yeah. And that ties into surrounding yourself with, people you want to become, or you're the average of 5 people you hang around with. Right. So, we've had these a million times, like, hey, if you want to hang out with the guy who goes to the bar 3 times a week, well, there's a good chance you're going to be that same guy. That's why the education or getting on these type of things, like, your motto in the back is thinking big, and like creating that energy that you want to be around these people, and you learn all the time. And the biggest thing I feel like the people who try to not help anybody because they're scared someone's going to take my idea or someone's going to take something I'm doing and be competitive, they don't really see the big picture. And Kevin and I were talking about that the other day. People who are good people are so willing to help other people because they know there's plenty for everybody, and it, your life is going to be better off because you can bring someone along. Obviously, rising tides raise all ships, or whatever the thing is. It's like, if you have people who are of that mindset, you want to help them. And like Kevin said, you can't make people who don't believe what you're saying believable. You're not going to say, hey, we can buy an apartment building to maybe someone who doesn't believe that, because in their mind they've already squash that mindset. So that's why I like Kevin and I are like, Kevin jacks me up all the time. I was like, I need Kevin 24/7. Like,
the thing about it is already like the tip on just the voice text. Yep. Taking time that gives you more time in your life to be able to sit there and voice text. And I'll sit there and respond back to Kevin some, and then I'll get about 5 sentences in and I'm realizing, hey, this is going to be a little lengthy. Why am I not voice texting? But Kevin, almost all of his comes through as a voice text because he understands the importance of it, and he's built a habit in his life. That's a tip. That's a pro tip right there. Use voice text instead of fingering texting, because it's too much time.
And I listen to everybody's voice text on 1.5.
Yeah.
So you send me a 1 minute thing, I'll listen to it in 40 seconds.
I was driving down the road and it was plugged into the car stereo, and Christy, my wife, she said, God, he's talking fast. And I said, no, I got it on 1.5. But these are tips. Like, I didn't used to do that until I got around Kevin, and then I was in the Deal Maker Alliance mastermind, and someone else was talking about it, and I was like, I need to implement this in my life. And this is why you get around winners, because you pick up little, small, strategic things to do in your life. You add it to your life, and then down the road, it makes massive gains. So, John, what's some of the things that you've done in your life that's helped you really produce a lot in short amounts of time? Maybe it's a daily activity. Maybe it's a concept or idea.
Yep. It kind of ties into some of the things we were just saying. So for me, obviously quitting a job, and I knew I wanted to invest and do things, but real estate was going to be, the way I made money initially to support my family. And, again, that's a time thing, and it takes time. That's a business in itself. And everybody says it's a 3 to 5 year probably window for some to really get it going, where now you're getting, referrals and things like that. But in the beginning, it's not that, just like any other business, a landscaping business or gutter cleaning business. So I said, when I got my real estate license, I'm going to hook on to the few people that are doing the most business right away, because those are the people I want to aspire to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I could fast track it. So I went to the top 3 or 4 agents and my broker and said, I will do anything. I will do your open houses. I will do the inspections, because I wanted to, that was part of my education, right? I didn't, then going to those inspections, I wouldn't just sit and wait for the inspector to come back and tell us what's wrong. I walked with the inspector. I was asking him questions. What's this wire? What's that? What stuff I didn't know? Because I'm like, I need to know everything. Because when I know everything, that's how I can create the processes for the other people, because I can make that video. I can write those steps down. So I just fast track. And that's when like new other real estate agents talk to me, and I can mentor them. And I'm like, get with someone who's doing it, and like be a leech to them if they let you be it. Just get all their information. And that's the same thing what you guys are doing with other people who want to do stuff. That's what I'm doing to you guys. I listen every Tuesday. And if I can't, I'm listening to the replay of it. Every time you guys post stuff, I'm reading that like it's, the Bible, because that's the stuff, that's where I aspire to be. So I would say, again, it goes back to fast tracking it. How much do you want to spend time doing it, and how quick do you want to do it? That's why the Tim Bratz thing, I was on the thing this weekend. He did Commercial Empire. And I want to learn. There's a million things he said and his staff said that I have no idea. I didn't know about. I didn't know existed. But now in my brain, there's something I can learn and follow it. So I would say just fast track it. Now I'm to the point where I know time and money are not necessarily the same thing. Like I'm giving up, time to make some money, but I want to be making money where I'm not giving up my time, and those processes are in place. So my goal, I know you guys have different businesses and dabble in real estate, is I want to go along the Tim method, where I own multifamilies and apartments. And, I've never thought about mobile homes and storage facilities up until like a year or two ago. That was nothing I could ever fathom. And I'm like, why can't you, if it's a good deal and you can educate yourself on that, whatever it may be. So I'm trying to think big and do different things. And, one of the things I always talk about, and Kevin and I talk about, is creative financing and things. Most people don't believe, I don't have any money, I can't invest. Well, if you find the deal, you don't need your own money, and no one can really, I shouldn't say nobody, but a lot of people don't comprehend that, so like learning the creative financing piece of the Tim Bratz thing and how you can structure deals. And even Kevin, I've thrown things at him for an investment property. He's like, well, what about this? And I'm like, wow, I never even thought about that. And that's like mind-blowing stuff, because a deal for someone of just, a percentage of their money that they loan might not be a deal, but a deal with a percentage that they loan and equity in the deal might be something. And you have the same person, if you just don't present it the right way, they might be out. And if you present it this way, they might be in. So,
you made me think of a conversation I had with someone yesterday, and I was telling him about a mastermind group, about $1,000 a month to be in it. And he said, why does people pay $1,000 to be in that group? And he was talking about the Mark Evans DM Alliance group, which is, Mark brings this very high level thought. And the way Mark puts it is the best way to say it. He breaks your frame. So if you look at that jersey frame you have behind you, just imagine him breaking that and saying, let's make it bigger. And I said, the reason I'm in the group, it's not that he sits here and he says, okay, here's the VA and what this VA is going to do and why you need this in your business. It's the fact that he sits there and he'll say, well, why are you trying to make $1 million net in a year? Why don't you try to do $1 million a net in a month? Now, what type of revenue streams allow you to make that $1 million in a month? And so it just breaks your train of thought to make you think bigger so that you can believe and imagine more. On my vacation I was just at, I was watching these yachts. I was on a cruise, a 10-day cruise, and 7 ports we went to. And every port, there was these massive yachts, and somebody owns those yachts, and somebody is leasing those yachts for the day or for the week. And I was looking at them and I thought to myself, this experience is allowing me to think bigger, because I don't see these yachts at the local lake next to where I'm at in North Mississippi. These yachts are at beautiful ports like St. Martin, where people that have money go and spend time away to enjoy lifestyle experiences. And I've heard Mark talk about it. He says he goes to some yacht event he goes to, and he said, man, I just sit there and it makes me think bigger because somebody owns those yachts. And if they own it, why can't I own it? This is why you change your environment and you get around other people. This is why we bring people like you on, John, to tell their experience, because everyone walks away with a different concept after hearing new knowledge.
Yeah. And I think all this stuff is tied in. We're talking about like law of attraction and who you surround yourself and mindset and thinking bigger. It's all interconnected, which is awesome. And you don't know what you don't know. So if I don't know something and then Kevin, I'm talking to Kevin or you tell me something, it's like, oh, I didn't know that. Now I know that. Yep. So now that brings me maybe to the next level. And we talk about something else based on that. And then there's 5 things I didn't know. And that's how I think you grow mentally. I was such in a different mindset. I talk about mindset all the time to my players that I coach and everything. I was none of this stuff 5 years ago before really, maybe when I quit my job and then the stroke and that stuff maybe fast tracked it a little more, but I didn't know any of this stuff. And then I'm like, wow, there is so many people thinking on a higher level, and they're normal people like you or me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I can relate to Kevin because Kevin and I had a personal relationship. We were guys, just normal guys who were doing our own thing. We're from New Jersey and we're not much different. I didn't grow up with, a huge house and have all this, wealth from my family. I was just a middle-class family, but that's the mindset that's all I knew. That was what the world was telling me. Once you start talking to other people, you're like, when we moved, and I was like, those people are no different than me in that huge house. Just like you're saying about the boats, they're no different. I know them. I talk to them, but they're doing something or thinking something that I wasn't doing. How do I change to get to that? Because I never thought that was attainable, and it 100% is attainable. Is it attainable tomorrow, a month, 5 years? But it's there. You can go get it. And you said that early. There's nothing you can't go get or go do, whether it's 6,000 Tim Bratz doors or, whatever the case with the yacht, it doesn't matter, and that was my perfect example of someone telling me you can't be a Division I basketball player. If I would have been like, yeah, you're right, that's impossible, then it would have never have happened. But I was looking at something bigger, and that's for your business, for real estate, for your life, for your family, for everything. So that's kind of my mindset of it. I'm just kind of started. I'm scratching the surface. I'm trying to get to your guys' position and whatever, but it's going to be John's thing, not Chris's thing or Kevin's thing. But I'm gonna learn all the stuff from you guys, because we're all different. But your situation and what you do can definitely help me. I'm gonna be the best John I can be. That's all it is.
Man, that was good stuff for both of you. especially how Mark talks. That's what's changed for me. So this might be surprise a lot of you guys because I'm so different now. But even like 6 years ago, I still had a scarcity mindset, even though I was making what I thought was like a ton of money. I had like these ceilings on myself. I've had ceilings my whole life. When I was cutting lawns, it was 100 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just like 100 grand was like a ton when I grew up. My parents didn't make 100 grand. I knew like 2 people who made 100 grand. They lived like an awesome life. So I thought that was a ton. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, all right, maybe I could do 200. I don't know. And you just start doing these things. But even in 2015, I had this mentor here. Still have him. He's a great guy. He's like a friend now. Maybe he's worth 75 or 80 million dollars. And I went to his house, and of course I saw it on Zillow, and it was like $8.7 million. You know, I looked at the address and I was like, holy shit. I go and I'm driving through this thing, and I was talking to him, and I said, who lives here? Who the hell does? And he says, it's you. You just don't know it yet. I remember like that. When I was driving home, I'm like, yeah, it's a guy just like me, but he made me believe over lots of conversations that like I can do anything. He was like, you have this window that like you think like $500,000 or 600,000 is like insane amount of money. He was like, there's guys making 3-4 times that a month. Yeah. And they're no different than you. They just like lifted these ceilings. I don't know. It was like super powerful. And when I started doing that and getting around other people, you start attracting those people, Mark Evans and all these guys. That's why John and I connected. And like all the other people who don't believe that, they start to go away. It's almost like you repel them. It's super powerful. So like now I feel like I could do anything. That once you have that in your head, it's almost scary. Like you could do anything.
You know what you said, Kevin, like you repel them. Like when you get around guys like you, and I'm just waiting every time I talk to Kevin or Chris, if I talk to you, I'm waiting for I'm like listening for something I don't know now. Like it's like
absolutely
the anticipation. So like I don't know Mark Evans personally. He was on Tim's thing and those, but I was like, my face was like right up to the computer like this when they were speaking. And I'm like, I'm trying to like listen to every word. So it's funny, but I'm sure everybody could kind of feel this way. It feels like an addiction. Sometimes you're like, oh, I can't wait for that call that Kevin's going to do with me in 2 weeks. Cause I know he's going to say something that I don't know. And I better be ready to remember it or write it down. So like, those are the things that get you excited to talk to people who are doing unbelievable things. Like, don't be in awe of what they do. And like I said, Tim's 6,000 doors are great, but I'm trying to pick up whatever I can when he says it. And I don't need to be like, oh my God, and just don't remember anything he says. I need to be on it because he's going to give me something. And when you do, you better take it and understand it and research it and educate and run with it. And that's the great thing about you guys.
I think that's the key, though, is you're taking this information and then you find a way to implement it. And so many people get in that section of, well, I need to know more. I need to know more. I need to know more, because there's the fear of the unknown. But the best way to break the fear of the unknown is to go do it, because then you start knowing what it feels like, knowing that it's not going to be complete failure when you take the first step. There's another step right in front of that step. It is a staircase. And I also love the fact that you were not scared to spend the money to educate yourself. You're not scared to ask and have conversations with other people. Man, here's what I've learned about successful people. One thing, truly successful people, they do have an abundant mindset. They don't mind sharing if they see someone taking the effort to grab the knowledge and run with it. And most people that are truly hungry are willing to do. I loved how you said when you were talking to those realtors that were very successful, you found the top 3. You said, hey, I want to be next to you and learn from you, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes. That statement right there is where most people miss it. And they don't say, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, because they're not starving for it. Yep. And you said, I'll go to the inspections, which is a nuisance for a top successful realtor. Yep. I'll go to the open houses, which is somewhat of, you found whatever that shit job was, and you said, I will do that just to get next to the process and to learn. And that's why you're successful. That's why you were successful in basketball. You said, I'll do whatever it takes. So I'm going to level myself up next to all these big players because I want to play with them. You were willing to do the walk on.
And you know what, Chris, like you said about spending the money to educate yourself. And I know everybody's threshold of what they could spend obviously is different, or what they feel comfortable spend. But when you take a step back and said, what do I spend this dollars on that I don't even think about? And if I could take that away because it maybe doesn't have that much value to me, and I can put it towards this education where it could get me something that, 10x, 50x, or 100x where I am because I'm now educating. Like Tim's thing was $400. Could I go spend $400 going out twice with my family, maybe to dinners? And if I didn't do that in a month, how much more education could I get? And if I implemented 3 days of stuff of high level people telling me that I could cut out 2 dinners and do, and I'm like, that's the opportunity cost of doing one versus the other. I'm like, I'm there all day long. So it's the same thing with masterminds or whatever you're doing, but you also got to take, like you said, the information from there and then implement. It doesn't mean anything. Everybody loves when you're there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And the next day when you wake up and there's no, class to take, it's like, what do I do? You got to be implementing those things.
You got to be implementing. People who pay attention.
Yep.
Yeah. So
true.
It's just like our mastermind we're doing in January, end of January in Destin. We're going to give them one action item. Like that's a part of what me and Kevin are trying to do with this mastermind, is to say, hey, we want to hear your story, where you're at, and we want to give you one deliverable. You're going to get tons of stuff that's going to overwhelm you and all this new information. But we're going to say, focus on this one thing. Here is your personalized plan that's going to change your trajectory in the next 12 months. You're going to see massive change in your income. And this income is going to bring massive new opportunity, because revenue does solve most problems. But you got to have the one action item, not 50, because you'll never implement them.
I totally agree. People go to masterminds. We've all gone, or an event. You go to I went to a Tony Robbins. You're all excited. You get some, and then the next 2 days later, nothing's going on. You got to pick one thing and just execute on it relentlessly. So that's what we're going to be doing at this mastermind. And we're going to be doing it in our war room group, where we're going to be talking about, this is one thing you need to do between now and next Thursday. Don't try to do 27 things. If you do one thing every week and you're doing it, like at the end of the year, it's massive.
It's accountability.
And then it becomes habit, right?
It's like working out. I had a friend, he was 270 pounds, and John, he's like, we're all about 5'10". He was our height. And he was telling me, 13 months ago, on New Year's, I'm going to start doing this. I said, bro, start today. Go walk 5 minutes. Tomorrow,
everybody's going to start.
Then walk
Monday,
7. Just do that.
It on some other day. Today, like right now, this minute.
And you don't have to go work out for 2 hours. Just go walk for 10 minutes. So today, if you want to just go read 10 pages, take 10 minutes away and do it. If you just add on that, it becomes a ton of stuff at the end of the year. But everybody wants to do this. I'm going to start, next Monday, I'm going to 2 hours a day. I'm going to do. You're not going to do that. You got to get the habit going.
The best time to start was yesterday. The next best time is right now.
Yeah. Right. Anybody tells me they're starting in a week, you're not doing it.
Yeah. I'm gonna start looking for businesses tomorrow. No, the fuck you won't.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it.
Start right now.
Start right now. Look the website up. Set the browser in your phone. I mean, I love it.
John, it was great having you on. I love talking about this stuff. I just love this watching people come up. So we'll bring John back on in a year or two, and we'll just see how many things have changed. I told John, I already know what's going to happen to you before you know what's going to happen. He's already doing well, but I just know you'll look back, you'll have 500, 600, 700 units. I just know when guys are going to do it.
It's because you got a track record for winning.
I'm excited about that. There's a quote that there's 50 seats on a bus and only 2 in a Ferrari, right? Because it's comfortable just sitting on the bus, and that's where everybody is. But there's not everybody trying to be in the Ferrari. So like I appreciate you guys by the content that you push out. And I know a lot of people on here are doing great things, and they tune in every Tuesday or listen to you guys. Cause like I said, there's one or two things that we could say today that could help everybody. And next week, whoever you have on, they'll be the same thing. And that's why people tune in. So you guys are providing great content, and I appreciate you including me and having me on as well.
I appreciate it, John. It was great having you on. All right,
Thanks.
everyone, we're off. We'll see you on next Tuesday. And anybody who's in the war room's going to be Thursday, 2 p.m., but you'll get a message and email, and Chris and I are going to do a call and set everything up for everybody.
Yep. Appreciate y'all. See you later.
Thanks, guys.